Hey, what's going on? This is the Saturday Down South podcast. I am Connor O'Gara. Will, good to be chatting with you on a Monday. It's just like old times, man.
Yeah, man. This is actually a perfect way to start my week. You know, it's like everybody has like the Monday blues or the Sunday scaries or whatever. It's like, I could just talk about college football with my buddy on Monday. I'm looking forward to it now, man.
Amen. That's look, we are officially in a football week.
Mm-hmm.
I know people get too excited about week 0. I really it is officially the start of college football season. I get it. And I am not one to say we should hold back on these countdowns. Just temper your expectations with week 0. It'll be good to have college football on the TV. I had the ultimate calm before the storm weekend before the last Saturday without college football. And it was great. It was lovely. So Lauren and Claire went to Indianapolis Thursday through Sunday to see our new niece, Cooper, who's doing well, doing great. And Claire just got to run around with her cousins all weekend, had an awesome time. I did, I think, 3 to 4 hours of yard work both on Saturday and on Sunday. I, as the commissioner of my fantasy football league, had to do like all my keeper information, which is a multi-hour process to get that out, get that information out to my league members and whatnot. And then I got to see Nate Bargatze in Orlando. Yes, it's Bargatze, not Bargatze, on Saturday night. And it was awesome. Absolutely awesome. Great show. So I feel refreshed on this Monday morning. I feel like I got the exhale that I needed to feel good going into the season.
Connor, with all of that, you didn't say what I was going to start with, which is that were you excited to be a Chicago Bears fan this weekend?
Yes. Tempered expectations. Don't want to be talking Super Bowl after one drive.
But that was the most confident they've looked since the days of Cutler, Urlacher. Like
the throw that he had to Cole Kmet, that was just a 30-yard on a line, made me think, oh, yeah, there's a reason why Caleb was the number 1 pick. And I don't want to get too excited. Was I texting my brother about Luther Burden's blocking? Yes. Of course. Yes, I was.
Would expect nothing less. So perfect weekend for you, man. Some yard work. Got to watch some comedy. The Bears were good. This is like Ice Cube's Today Was a Good Day by you, you know?
It really was. And while I definitely missed Lauren and Claire, I did not miss Miss Rachel. Miss Rachel's great. Miss Rachel, when you hear Miss Rachel as often as I have heard Miss Rachel over the course of the last 6 months, it was nice to get a break from her and her crew. I'll say that.
We got to put Miss Rachel in Azkaban heading into the football season. We're in tape grinding mode. You know what I'm saying? She's had her time. It's time to lock in.
She's great. Let me be clear. Nothing against Miss Rachel. It's the reliance that one might have on Miss Rachel. I can only hear those songs a certain amount of times. But yes, we were recording this on a Monday. We have Monday and Thursday pods this week. We have today coming up the Big Ten. Worst idea that the Big Ten has ever had. I'm going to tee off on the Big Ten because I haven't done that in a minute, and it felt like a very appropriate time after what Pete Thamel tweeted out. That just drove me up a wall. So we have that. We have Dari Nowkhah coming up in a little bit, and then a lad of the week. But first, got to talk to you guys about our friends at Dabble. College football season starting. You're going to want to get in on the DFS space. If you are one of these people that has been locked into doing all things DFS with maybe Major League Baseball, now is the perfect time to get over to a place that does DFS and does it right like Dabble does. They have wasted no time making a name for themselves. Dabble's social function is second to none. They offer a wide variety of sports for making picks, including the NBA. We've got MLB, of course, going on, and then very, very soon, college football as well. Use the promo code SDS2 when you sign up today to receive $10 in bonus cash. No deposit required. Again, that is promo code SDS2, $10 in bonus cash, courtesy of the good folks at Dabble. Will, the Big Ten had the worst idea ever. But
now,
like the worst.
Because I actually thought you're right. This is the worst idea ever. But let's really just, think about these ideas. Leaders and legends. It's worse than that.
It's worse.
Skipping
legends
2020.
Legends and leaders, we say it, yeah, in Big Ten circles. We don't leaders and legends. That doesn't flow. That doesn't pop.
Listen, anyway, skipping the entire 2020 COVID season.
Let me rewind, because legends and leaders, the actual divisions itself made sense. So that wasn't the worst idea. The name was the worst idea, but the actual competitive divisions worked, and it was so much better than East and West. So that's why you can't say that's definitively the worst idea. The COVID season canceling it, going rogue, and after meeting regularly with all the other conferences and Kevin Warren stepping up to the table and saying, we're going to cancel it, and then just expecting everybody else to do it, and then realizing, oh crap, not everybody else is canceling football, and this is going to look really bad if we're the only major conference that has canceled an entire season just because we wanted to go rogue. Bad idea. Confirmed bad idea, both in the moment and in hindsight. This idea is worse.
Yes, and one more, I think it's even in this tier. We can go through nickel and dime, but the Alliance, still significantly worse. And you could almost argue the Alliance helped them at the end of the day.
The Alliance not as bad because it wasn't fully just them.
Mm-hmm.
You can put blame on others and say, oh, they took part in this. And don't get it twisted. If others are on board with the worst idea ever that the Big Ten just had for this expanded playoff, which we're going to get to in a second here, they will be complicit. And we will definitely assign blame. But the fact that it was the Big Ten who was floating this idea out there and then throwing this at other conferences, we get to put full blame on the Big Ten for every possible thought that went into this, that went into even just leaking it.
Yep.
And I'm upset about this, Will. And can I make a promise to the people?
Sure.
Because we're in week 0. We're starting a football week here. I want to be talking about football, okay? And I want to really actually be able to stick to this. And there was a part of me today, I was like, you know what, Connor? What if we just instead talked about Joey Aguilar being named the starting quarterback at Tennessee? What if we instead talked about why I'm a little bit concerned about Alabama's backfield now that it's not going to have Jam Miller for that first game, and maybe even more, depending on the severity of that injury that he suffered in a preseason scrimmage. I want to talk about those things because those are actual football. And instead, we've got the Big Ten doing things that are so dumb, that during week 0 of the freaking college football season, I feel compelled to talk to you about this on a Monday morning. That's how dumb this is.
Yeah.
That's how dumb.
Yeah.
This will be the last time.
What's up?
This will be the last time. This is the last time until we actually get a real playoff format decided, which that has to happen before this. That has to happen in the next 3 months, right? December 1st, 2025. That's the date that this has to all be figured out, unless I just memory hold that and misremembered in like December 3rd. Beginning of December is when this all has to be decided. But this will be the last time that we do an in-depth discussion about playoff expansion until there is a real legitimate announcement about what is actually happening and not just ideas that are being floated out there by greedy behind the scenes people.
Yes. And I have a follow-up, but I'll let you get through the meat of what's going on and I'll ask my follow-up. Go ahead.
Pete Thamel tweeted on Saturday, sources, the Big Ten has begun populating an expanded college football playoff idea, which would include 24 or 28 teams, just an idea at this point. That was the tweet. And then also no conference championships either. Whatever, that's not the takeaway. The takeaway is 24 or 28 teams is the idea, just an idea at this point, that the Big Ten is floating out there. Do you want to get the follow-up in first before I lose my breath?
First, the way that tweet is worded is so funny because that's so like that feels like, hey, this weekend I was supposed to watch Claire, but I'm actually just going to watch football with the boys. We had a golf trip planned, didn't tell you about it. Just an idea at this point.
Just an idea.
Just an idea at this point. Don't get mad at me. So here's my question. From a journalist standpoint, this timing, I mean, this isn't like a Friday news dump. This isn't off-season content or talking season to get people going. Like, what is the timing here?
It's a Saturday news dump.
Yeah.
Weird timing. Very, very weird. And this gets thrown out there. You know what? I'm glad you brought this up because, I mean, this idea blows chunks, and so does the Big Ten for even floating this out there. And I can say this is a Big Ten graduate who has had a lot of moments of my childhood that I can attribute directly to the Big Ten. I'm very grateful for that. But this idea sucks so much. The language that's used, it's almost if he's trying to, or whoever floated this to Pete Thamel, because this is the way that this works now, where whether it's conference commissioners or directors of communication or sports information directors, whoever is floating this out there to Pete Thamel, agents for all I know, is just trying to disarm. Mm-hmm. It's trying to disarm the people that are inevitably going to tweet at him and say, Pete, this idea blows chunks. What are you doing? If he tweets this as this hard and fast thing that the Big Ten is legitimately throwing at other people and saying this is what they're pushing for, this is what they're putting all their energy behind, the reaction is that much stronger to Pete's tweet specifically. But it's just an idea at this point, Will. It's just an idea.
But all this, to your point, man, like this has gone through emails, this has gone through team Slacks. This is not, oh, let me just haphazardly tweet about this. There's a reason why this came out on Saturday, and there's a reason why it is just an idea at this point. This could have come out at Monday, and they chose to drop it exactly this way. This is not an accident.
Will, you work or have worked in the corporate setting. What you're doing right now is a little bit corporate, but not probably as corporate as what you were doing before. Tell me if I'm wrong here. Is there anything worse than a person or a group of people that think they have the pulse of everyone, but in reality, they have no pulse on reality whatsoever?
Yep.
Isn't that the worst?
Yep. It's the people that go to all the corporate functions and like are in all the pictures and everything, and they just kind of come across, as a little bit too type A or too about it, and they're like, well, I'm the most involved, so I should have the most say. And it's like, actually, the rest of us don't want to be involved.
That's what the Big Ten is.
Yep.
That is what the Big Ten has become. It is something that has 0.0% chance of being received positively. And we know that because if you saw Brett McMurphy's Twitter poll, which received more than 23 or 24,000 votes, okay, that's not a small sample size. People follow Brett McMurphy because at the very least, they give one tiny crap about college football, okay? That is, by the way, 24,000 is like fill up a standard Northwestern crowd. That's the amount of people that we're talking about here. Only 6% of those people wanted a playoff with 24 or more teams. Do you know how hard it is to just float an idea out there and only have 6% of people say that's a really good idea? That's almost impossible. If I threw something out there that was just the most abstract thing in the world of like, who's a better quarterback, Cam Newton or Jackson Arnold? Like, I think I'd get more than 6% that would say Jackson Arnold.
Yeah. We had real people saying that Jalen Hurts was better than Cam Newton recently.
Jalen Hurts, NFL, Jalen Hurts. That's a complicated question. Different discussion. And that's not what this is about necessarily, of getting the majority of people that want something, because I've said time and time again, this is not what the college football fan wants. That is not being discussed as the driver of what expansion is going to look like. Everyone can see right through what the Big Ten did. You saw right through it. I saw right through it. People listening to this did. It is not just even about squeezing every last dollar out of the revenue driver that is college football compared to other sports and college athletics. It is about trying to circumvent a way to cover all of these new costs in the revenue sharing era while not decreasing spending, and instead just hoping that the most bloated playoff possible will cover the cost. And that's the part that sucks. And I hate that. If you want to get mad, look how this actually breaks down with the 2018 playoff. Reddit College Football did the bracket of what the Big Ten proposed here, with 7 auto bids apiece for the Big Ten and SEC, 5 auto bids apiece for the ACC and Big 12, 2 auto bids for the non-power conference champs, and 2 at large. Teams with 7 regular season wins are into the playoff, Will. We're 2 years away from Florida State going undefeated and being told, nah, we can't give you a chance to play for a national championship because we don't feel great about your backup quarterback. Michigan won 7 games without any quarterback situation last year.
Yep.
And we'd suddenly be like, yep, you've earned the right to play for a title. Congratulations. And by the way, only 4 teams would get buys. So teams seeded 5 through 28, you basically get the same thing.
The phrase 5 through 28 is just funny to me. I don't know. I hate to just start off this Monday with another just like millennial reference, but you know what this reminds me exactly of? Andy Bernard. This is, you talked about like that guy that's a little bit too much. Oh, I went to Cornell, I'm so much smarter than you, I'm going to tell you how to fold my shirts. It gives very much, oh, we like college football? We want to do college football? Let's do the most college football. Let's do, oh, okay. And it's so funny because it's another concept, and I don't want to like go down this whole rabbit hole just yet, but it's the thing that we've always talked about, where the people in power use the plight of the little guys to get their message across. UCF got left out. FSU got left out. So we're going to help those guys out. Now you're helping out 7-6 Ohio State or 7-6 Michigan. That's who you're helping out.
We already have a system that helps out those teams.
Yep.
They'd be fine. You want to talk about those teams getting a chance to play for a national championship? They get a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Boise State in the previous era of college football last year doesn't get a chance to play for a national title. They would have had the loss to Oregon, the close loss to Oregon, and they wouldn't have been able to make the 14 playoff. They wouldn't have been able to make the BCS national championship. They have a system that now, hey, you want a chance to play for a national championship? You even got a first round bye.
Yep.
And here you are, like, telling us, oh, yeah, no, we got to give everyone a chance. Everyone wants that seat at the table. And in so many different ways, it is just spitting on the system and on the sport that so many people have come to love. I have pushed back at times when people have said that the 12-team playoff has completely ruined the regular season. I think there are positives. I think there are negatives. Okay. I don't think it's as black and white as some like it to make it out to be. And I think it helped in year one that no at-large team made the field with a 9-3 record. Mm-hmm. I know Clemson made the field with 3 losses, but they end up winning the ACC, whatever. Even 10-2 Miami got left out.
Yep.
So I still think that can get a touch overblown. Like, I don't want to listen to these people saying Michigan, Ohio State didn't mean a thing. It's like, no, you're just choosing that narrative and trying to pick that game as like whatever sort of argument that you want to make. And this is why we need to revert back to, like, no, that game meant a ton. And you can't tell me that it didn't. It could have meant even more, but it still meant a lot at the time to those people. But this is the idea, just an idea, of how you completely ruin the regular season. Like, this is it. If you're wanting to know what are the last, how do you get the last people like off of your sort of like approval rating, this is the formula to do it. There are teams that would hit 8 wins and just rest half of their starters for multiple games. You know,
yep.
Like, that would happen because 5 through 28.
You
it's
see
the
it.
Same thing.
How many wins does Alabama need under this system? They don't need to play the ranked games. They just, you beat one piddly, like a hot Ole Miss team or something, or a hot Mizzou team. Okay, you got your ranked win. Pack it in, boys.
You're not going to have, and the SEC, I guarantee you, if this happened, and these other conferences could just say, oh, well, just don't have the power conference game requirement in non-conference play. Just get rid of that. What's the point of that anymore? And just try and make these schedules as beneficial as possible. I don't think that makes scheduling better. It makes teams say, hey, I dare you to leave a 10-2, Georgia team out of the playoff, even if, and Georgia's the worst example I could have brought up there because Georgia actually schedules power conference teams in non-conference play. But you get what I'm saying. Like, I dare you to leave this 10-2. Yeah, it has done that. That is not what we currently have with the 12-team playoff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's not. I do think that there is more roster management. We've talked about that. We've talked about the Steve Sarkisian quote about how I don't think there's going to be another undefeated team with this era of college football and how many games you're asked to win and what it means from a depth standpoint. Like, we're already seeing spots where I think guys that would have come back if this were 1 loss and you're out of the national championship picture, or 2 losses, you're out of the national championship picture. And those guys are instead being held out an extra week. So yeah, maybe there's been some adjustments that have been made already to kind of align with the system that we're in. But you know how week 18, I should say, of the NFL season is just a mess, and why nobody has a fantasy football championship like week 18, and you're just left to believe this is an important week for a few of those people that still have playoff chances, but for so many, it's you're going to rest your starters. We talked with Matt Flynn about that last week of the regular season when your team that's already got the playoff berth, and there are just so many different ways that it's going to be interpreted, and like week 12 of the college football season or week 13 of the college football season all of a sudden becomes that. That's rivalry week.
Yep.
Like, what? Well, that's why you can miss me with the comps to the NFL. And some people are already saying, well, college football is just the NFL. There are still different elements to it. And there are important different elements to it and why you cannot just adopt the same postseason system. When Drink talked at SEC Media Days about how it's not good for college football that only 12% of the FBS teams are in the playoff, and how that's just going to be something that's going to drive fan interest away from the sport, and how the NFL putting 44% of its teams in the playoff, that's what makes the postseason great in the NFL. There are so many problems with that. And I should have gotten into it, but there are a lot of other things to talk about at Media Days besides playoff expansion. And quite frankly, I just put that one on the back burner, admittedly. You can't sit here and pretend that everyone is playing with the same deck of cards like they do in the NFL. It's just, and if you do, tell me why Group of Five and FCS teams are getting 7-figure checks to come add wins to power conference schedules. Tell me why coaches don't just stay at Group of Five jobs for 20 years and why there's an expectation that they want to get to the most advantageous power conference jobs. The NFL is drafting from the same pool, and it has legitimate parity to warrant that. College football does not. And unless you want to draft high school players and transfer portal players and just have it be a free-for-all, that's never, ever, ever happening. So the spectrum is infinitely wider in college football compared to the NFL. Far less necessary to pretend that an 8-4 Baylor team is suddenly worthy of that opportunity, especially when they're the ones that are creating their non-conference schedule, unlike the NFL, which actually has balanced scheduling and it's got a players union that's able to understand all these different dynamics. People like Drink might say that they're gatekeeping. I do not think that it's gatekeeping when we're coming off a year, and brace for it. I'm not going to be a homer with this one at all. We're coming off a year in which Indiana didn't beat a single top 25 team. It didn't play in its conference title game. And even as the program that has more losses than any FBS program in America, the selection committee was still like, hey, Indiana, you get a chance to play for a national title. We're not gatekeeping. What are we talking about? Don't give me that 12% number and tell me that makes us gatekeeping in college football by doing this. Mizzou, if you're 10-2 like you were in 2023, you're getting into the college football playoff. Okay? I'm sorry that you got blown out in all these games that actually mattered last year. I'm sorry that people laughed at you when you only had 2 losses and you were saying that you still had playoff contention. You know what wasn't being gatekept? Freaking Indiana. Okay? So miss me with that. That's the reason why we need to expand the college football playoff. That is so dumb. That is so dumb on every single level. If you think this sport is doing too much gatekeeping with its postseason system, I think you're in the wrong sport. I just do. Like that's, and I get why Drink was one of the 6%ers. Okay. From that standpoint, like the timing of it is so typical Mizzou in that way, and that sucks. And I'm sorry that your team went 21-5 over the course of the last 2 years, and here you are going into year 3 of that run, or at least what you hope will be that run, and you can't even get in the preseason top 25. I'm sorry that your program got left out in that way, but miss me with why the playoff needs to expand for us to actually get some respect. The solution to that problem is not multiplying the playoff field. And I chose that word carefully, multiplying. We can agree that the BCS system had mixed reviews. Will, review from you as an LSU fan. Like
we love the BCS.
I don't know. 2011, though. 2011 LSU, like BCS.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
That's the thing that's weird. The LSU got it in 07, so trade 1 for 1, right?
True. Good point. But even if you hated the way that the BCS crowned a title, which even people like Kirk Herbstreit said, worst postseason for the best sport, you can't tell me that going from 2 to 28 or 2 to 24 is a solution. The NFL has 44% of its teams playing for a playoff spot. The NFL added over the years the wild card round. In the 1980s, you had 5 playoff teams from each conference in the NFL. In the 1990 season, they added 1 to get us to 6 from the NFC and 6 from the AFC, so you get 12 playoff teams. 30 years later, they added 1 more team from each conference, which is how we're at this total now of 14 teams that make the NFL playoffs. That's where you get your 44%. Fans rolled with it.
Really quick, and by the way, at every stage, you know what the players union for these grown butt men said? No, They said, no, we don't want to add more games. We don't want to add more regular season games. We want to take away preseason games.
True.
We don't want to play more football as grown men. So you need to give us something back. You need to give us more money. You need to give us this. These college kids, again, without a players union, I'm glad that you hit on that, and I will later. We're obviously barreling towards that because these college kids are getting asked to play now into as many games as NFL players are without a players union and no say in this.
And that's why I think there is real urgency to want to get this locked in first before they can have some sort of union to be able to say, this actually isn't what we want. And we would like to have a voice at this. And not that the fan voice matters at all to these people, these decision makers at this point, but fans rolled with the NFL because it wasn't multiplying the championship field by 14 and completely changing the complexion of the sport within a matter of a few years. And
hold on, let me actually jump in right there. And well, tell me if there's a better place for me to jump in. Can I jump in right here?
Yeah, far away.
Okay. So, talking about the fans rolling with it and stuff. There has been this push, and I'm gonna, guys, if you've listened to me over the offseason, I have the same take on this. I'm sorry. It's just the same from the beginning. I've had the same take on this. It's never changed. That's what happens when you might be right a little bit, is that there's no reason to edit it. It's that these executives think that fans will just kind of lay down and do whatever they say because they've seen it in other sports leagues. They've seen it in baseball, the NBA. They've seen the things that we hold sacred in those sports leagues, kind of go away over time. And every once in a while, you'll get like a weird thing, like the All-Star game super mattering in baseball, and that'll eventually get taken away. You'll get the DH eventually get taken away because the goal from that standpoint, from the TV standpoint, is to homogenize this stuff. All right. I'm going to go 1,000 foot really quick. That's why I said, let me know if there's a better place to kind of talk about this. But I really do feel like the Big Ten has been so sorry for so long that it has driven them mad. Like, I genuinely think that the Big Ten was so unable to compete with not just the SEC, but other conferences over the course of the last 20, 25 years. Okay. And they started thinking, our teams aren't the problem. We're Michigan men. We have great academics. We have money. We have all this different stuff. What's the issue? And what the issue is, and again, I've talked about this a lot, but I think it really is important when you view this. What is beautiful about college football? It's a lot of the pageantry and tradition that Southerners hold dear, right? It's about your alma mater. It's about your hometown. It's about all that. And those are the things that are being immediately taken away, right? But how do they do this? They don't say, oh, well, we're out here trying to make as much money as possible and give our teams the most chances and homogenize the sport and turn it into the NFL. No. They start with, well, you're not paying these players. You're not paying these players. This is slave labor. We got to pay these players, right? With no control, And so suddenly, like I said, it goes through the little guy. It goes through, oh, well, you guys are simple down there. You don't know how it goes. We're going to help you. We're going to come down, like I said, with our degrees. And these meetings happen not with a bunch of guys that sound like Marty Smith or John Skipper from ESPN back in the day, if you've ever heard of them. But these meetings happen on the coast, and they are about, okay, this silly little sport, it's been so great for so long, but they don't know how to run a sport. We're going to get in here and we're going to run a sport. And I think now we're finally seeing them show their hand of what they've wanted this entire time. Now, really quick, we take a step back from the beginning. I said the perfect number was 6 or 8. That's still my take. I'm sorry. I've said that from the...
And we'll never get there.
We'll never get there. But it is going to take, at this point, guys, something like the actual revolt that happened for that soccer super league that they tried to pitch and destroy the local rivalries and destroy the hometown fans. If you remember this, kind of about 2021, where they tried to make an international super league out of the top tier teams from every country. And this was fascinating to me because fans stopped it. Fans revolted. See, in America, we have a very different relationship with capitalism. Over there, they saw the money grab that this was. That's why I jumped in at this point, because you talked about fans being cool with it. Well, because capitalism has been slow dosed to us over time, like a little bit of morphine for the soul, right? We've been told wild card weekend, fantasy football, it's all, whatever, to the point where I don't feel like we have these moments like Brett Favre on Monday Night Football anymore, even in the NFL. That's where the NFL has become kind of less interesting to me. Take away the quarterback play and all the different stuff, but it's really just that it feels like I'm just eating McDonald's every time I turn on a Sunday and I get into the red zone, where it's just kind of escapism. I don't feel like those games matter and the storylines matter. So I feel like for us to get to an actual functional model here, guys, I feel like fans need to stand up, man. And maybe that's because I'm not in corporate America anymore. And I can,
6%.
yeah, like maybe that's not because I'm in corporate America and I'll say, hey, I'll be right there in the streets with you. You know what I'm saying? But that's exactly how I feel, because this sport is from the fans' perspective. It's from the universities, from the players. And like, if you go talk to these great players or old players, it's not like they're like, wow, I feel like I was like, Bo Jackson is not like Auburn University used me. It's terrible. That's the words that are being put in these players' mouths about how things used to be. So I'm not saying we need to have an AP poll and 4 different championships. That's silly. I get that. That's not going to work in 2025. But at the same time, reducing it to the ridiculous and willful, intentional ignorance, like that's weaponized, is like, oh, well, UCF can claim a championship because 2005 or 1905 Alabama did. That was kind of the beginning of this stuff, where it's like, this is how this used to be, so I'm going to look at it and pretend like, okay, I have this unbiased take. But in reality, these people are too smart to remove all that context, right? They're not trying to protect players. They're not trying to make the product better. They're not trying to serve fans. They're just trying to make money. And I think now we finally see what it is.
Oh, we've known this for forever,
Mm-hmm.
and the only way something like this actually sees the light of day, because it won't see the light of day just by it getting ratioed on Twitter.
Right.
That's not how decisions are made. It gets floated out there because people want to see how important people in this sport talk about it. Like, I'm not saying like that means, oh, college football decision makers are looking at what Conor O'Gara has to say. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the actual people who are movers and shakers in this sport and how they react to it. And decisions like this get made, and then retroactively, it's the optics that determine whether or not it was a good decision or a bad decision. The push for 82 NBA regular season games, the push for 162 Major League Baseball games, there's not pushback until there's the optics of empty stadiums all over the place. It's like, maybe we pushed this a little bit too far. Oh, well, I guess we're not going to go back the other way. And that's not going to, like, that's the risk of right now, this juncture. And college football is blessed to have a whole lot of places in the sport where you can watch Auburn, 5-win Auburn team with Cadillac Williams as its head coach, playing against Texas A&M, and the entire crowd is doing all the above, and it's electric. And that's not something that is necessarily impacting the college football playoff, but there are optics that go with all of these places across college football during the regular season that have been lost by these decision makers. And I've been admittedly a bit complicit in all of this, because I'm an adapt or die guy. We are adapt or die guys. That is what we are always going to be when we are talking to you, people that give a crap about this sport. Okay. Everybody's got their limit, though.
Yep. I'll tell you real quick.
This is the limit.
A tool of that, though, is debating these 9-3 teams last year. Right? Because remember, during that whole time, and like, that's why I'm so weird, because this isn't my main career. So I don't really ebb and flow with that type of stuff, where it's like, I look at Ole Miss, I look at Alabama, I look at South Carolina. I think South Carolina was a little bit closer than those other two, but I don't go, that's an injustice. They need to get in, because the more we're banging the table for teams that would have never had a shot in the dark under what we would deem to be a good system, a 6-team or an 8-team playoff, those teams would have never had a shot in that system. So to me, I go, what is a championship contender? Okay. 2 lost Ohio State last year, maybe a little bit of a special case. That's fine. They had the talent, whatever. But when we start talking about this team has an ugly loss, this team has an inexcusable loss, but, it's not fair that this team, that's how they get us. That is how they get us, is by whipping us into this fury where now we're worried about just as we were.
You're right.
Like Florida State, Georgia, that was ridiculous. That was ridiculous. And it immediately created, right, a tailwind where it was like, oh, now we can hop in here. It's not ridiculous that Ole Miss, Alabama, and South Carolina did not get to compete for a championship last year. I'm sorry. It's just not. And the more we jump in and pretend like we got to expand this field so these teams have a chance, the more we're going to see them smoked. Those teams get smoked by Ohio State like Tennessee did last year. Sorry.
Yeah, and like the competitive advantage, like that's part of it, and why it's unnecessary in my opinion. But what's great about college football is that so many of the things that happen in the regular season are not defined by the playoff. And if all of a sudden you decide, like, look, if you're not part of the playoff conversation, you're just irrelevant, and these moments aren't possible, then that sucks. That really sucks. And I do think that, not to get too preachy about this, but yeah, there are elements of the regular season that are still sacred. Okay. And I hear the people that are like, hey, what about the lower levels of college football with their expanded playoff? Yeah, tell me those regular season games matter. Tell me people actually care about that.
Have you watched a single regular season FCS game in your life? Not the playoff that's on ESPN that we all have to tune on every once in a while and get caught up via the graphics.
Never will.
Never.
And I'm sure the variance between those programs is far, far less than what we see at the FBS level, where you can have a matchup of top 10 teams with a three score spread.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, seriously. Arkansas, Georgia, top 10 matchup, 2021. Go back to that one. I have accepted that playoff expansion is likely coming in 2026. And that's why I say I am admittedly a bit complicit with this, because I'm not one of these people that is going to say, I'm going to quit the sport if they move up from 12. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If they move up to 16, yeah, it wouldn't be my favorite thing in the world. I don't think it needs to happen, but I understand why it's going to happen. And I'm not going to sit here and be like, I'm going to protest the sport. I'm not going to talk about the sport. I am not in position to do that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm admitting that to you.
I'm gonna keep watching and talking about it. I would also protest if that was an option, is all I'm saying. Unfortunately, they got me no matter what they do, but I will be upset I'll be hate watching it.
Yes. Yeah, but this isn't some sort of bring back the BCS rant.
Right.
Okay. It's not. But there are 3 months left to make this decision, Will.
Mm-hmm.
It is a massive, massive decision that'll be up to few. And an idea like this, while it's just an idea, it makes me more uneasy than ever. This close to the deadline, that this type of thing is being thrown out there. It makes me feel like powerful people have no sense of reality. And that is when you see the most fear, not just in sports, but if you want to get into geopolitical issues, that's the stuff that really makes people panic.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me feel like institutions with bloated budgets would rather see how much more money they can take advantage of people, while refusing to acknowledge that while change is inevitable, going from 2 teams to 28 teams to crown a champion, and doing so in a 12-year stretch, is not something that you can just expect people to roll with it. Would we watch? Of course we would watch. But we shouldn't be expected to just roll with that. We should all be hoping that it's just an idea that gets laughed out of the room, and we'll look back on this time and go, hey, remember when they thought a 28-team playoff would be a good idea and that was going to be the future of college football? That was stupid. I hope, as I sit here and breathe, that is going to be the takeaway, and that will be what I'm talking about 10 years from now.
100%. And guys, I know I sound like I'm being stark about this stuff. And at times I have been the guy that's laughing at, the future of the sports room when it comes to NIL deals or whatever. You know why this is a completely different tier? Okay. We can fix NIL very, very simply in my mind, because it's all about laws. Okay. You could really shut all that down and start over with the right legislation. And all it would take was one cycle of college to get it correct. Because like if Bryce Underwood is under a contract right now, we change the laws. He could just honor that contract and get out. We restart recruiting. That's a 3 or 4 year cycle, right? A television deal is not a 3 or 4 year cycle. And so that's why I stand here today with a lot more gravity in my voice, because I've been with you guys, like laughing at the boomers in the Twitter replies that are like, I don't want to watch this sport anymore. It's been ruined. It's not the game I love. I understand. Like, I get that was alarmist for a while about some of these issues. And I agree. Players should get played. Players should get paid. First mess up. Players should get paid. I agree with that. And I think that they should have a share of this revenue. And I think that that's fair. And I think that there should be maybe some type of players union, especially if we're going to make ridiculous, decisions like this. But I say right now, sometimes I will get into more like the socioeconomic stuff. Like, this is football. I like that you bring up the geopolitical stuff, because at this point it is on the media. Not that I'm not talking to you specifically here, right? Not saying that you, Conor O'Gara, have failed, but I think that we can kind of be carried it along a little bit and said, okay, more games, more coverage, more money,
we're in the content business. I get that. I fully get that. We're going to continue to talk about these things, even if it is an expanded playoff. But are we going to sit here and just go, oh yeah, you know what? Like, they got money to make, they got budgets, they got to meet. You don't want to have to lay these people off at this specific place. Well, so that's the only solution, because you have increased your budgets that much that's the only way that we're going to circumvent all this stuff? No, that's the problem, is that there are too many people that are not looking internally, and that they're looking at this external Hail Mary of a solution, which 6% is Hail Mary territory.
Yep.
That's not good. That's not good. And that's a sign that you don't have a pulse of what's actually going on within your sport.
Yeah.
That's terrifying, man. That's legitimately the type of stuff that makes me worried about college football. All those other things, when people are saying that in the middle of February, like tell me you're going to think this way in October. That stuff makes me worried.
Yes. And no, I appreciate the freedom to speak like this. And I think we're completely aligned. That's why it's so serious, because I think you are, it is the responsibility of the journalist to be the link between the people in power and the common man like myself, and to speak truth to that power and say, hey, like, regular people don't want to see this. At the end of the day, like, we love college football. Yeah, some vehicle where maybe there were, more games or whatever it would be. Maybe we do like more football. Like, I'm not saying I'm anti-football, but at some level we got to understand. Now we can talk about the player safety part of these kids playing 20 games. Now we can talk about these kids being free agents and dropping out in the middle of the season, and talking about switching teams mid-season when their team's season doesn't go the way it wants and there's still playoff implications. Not that I would say there'd be in-season transfers, but guys, when your team loses a game, wins a game in this weird, freaky schedule, when it starts to look more and more like every week is more like week 18 or week 17, it used to be, then it gets a little bit easier for the guys at the top to go snatch these players on these struggling rosters and already have deals in place, backroom deals, which are always going to exist in college football, that, hey man, just kind of check yourself out, get yourself a little, and then you're going to be on Ohio State next year, man. Don't worry about it. Don't get another injury. We're 4 games into the season. We've seen guys do this already. And so that's the way I see it, is that there has to be some sense of togetherness, like, it doesn't have to be, we got a bunch of good old boys from Alabama playing for the Tide. It has to be that we're all pro college football. And I think this is the line of demarcation where fans,
this is the line,
media, everybody can just go, we don't want this. Like,
we don't want this. We don't. It's okay to have a system that only has 13% or 12% or 11% of its teams playing for a title. You know what my buddies of an 8-4 Iowa team don't want? They don't want to see their team play for a national championship. They don't. You haven't earned it at that point. Wait a minute. You lost to Iowa State. Oh, you lost to Minnesota. Oh, you got waxed by 35 against Ohio State. And you know what? You lost that one game that you weren't supposed to because Michigan State had a good week. Here's your national championship path. That's never how this has worked. And it's okay to acknowledge that we live in a very unique ecosystem that is college football. To compare it to college basketball, to compare it to the NFL, is wrong. It's wrong. It's just blatantly wrong. There are parameters in place, and not parameters just because people have said so, but basic parameters that relate to competitive levels of this sport that have told us for decades that, hey, this is probably the way that it can work. And it existed in the way that it did for as long as it did. While I criticize the fact that we couldn't in 1997 say, Nebraska, Michigan, go play on a field and decide a freaking national championship, that still led to change. And while I criticize the way that college football operated in that space and the fact that you could look at the NCAA's website and find years in which 4 teams were credited with winning a national championship, that was wrong. But the basic reason for why that was in place was, look, can't have a college football postseason the same way that you do in college basketball. It just would not work. Yes, you would have occasional upsets, but it would do so much more harm than good. With all due respect to the late Mike Leach, with all due respect to the currently living and breathing Eli Drinkowitz, that is not the solution. It's just not.
Yeah. And I'd say too, like me and Connor on a podcast together, but part of the reason why I think this podcast works is we're so different. I have never been to Indianapolis. I had a lot of yard work that I needed to do this weekend and I put it off. But
you went to Indianapolis last year. You already forgot that you went for WNBA stuff.
You're so right. I did go to Indianapolis. I apologize.
I am remembering places you have been to more.
You know what's so funny about that, bro? I imagine them as the Indiana Pacers, not the Indianapolis Pacers. Sadness. I'm sorry to the people of Indianapolis. I had been to your great city one time. I enjoyed the Fever game, and that's what I got for you. I'm not a big fan, obviously. That's all I was saying. I'm a Southerner.
Hater.
But that being said, right, it is ridiculous to suggest that people like us, thinking adults with college degrees, think that we want to go back to multiple national champions, that we want to go back to not paying players, that we want to go back to this ridiculous archaic system.
Yeah, that's a separate issue.
It's not, because that's a lot of the stuff that's being said like, oh, well, this sport is silly. That's exactly what I was saying. So there is a happy medium. That's all I'm saying, is that just because we don't want this big amount of teams doesn't mean that we want to go back to days of yore where it was only two teams. You see what I'm saying? And so that's the thing. It's being reduced to the ridiculous a lot of these times. You talked about multiple national championships. We're not pro multiple national championships. We're not trying to bring back the BCS. I think that we found even 12. I'm cool with 12. You know what I'm saying? I still, but if that's fine with where it's at, maybe you could sell me a world with 16 with the right AQs. That's fine. I am an adapt or die guy. We both are. But all I'm saying is, there are not two schools of thought. There is not the new way and the old way. We are right now in this kind of chocolatey center that we need to really consider how nice it is.
We do. Gosh, 28 made me nauseous.
Yep.
Just nauseous. Oh, boy. I really hope that Just an Idea gets dunked on, laughed at, mocked. Just a thing of the past. 16 is still my prediction. I was one of those people, I was like, I'll embrace 12. I'm fine staying at 4. 24, 28. I think we would have every right to sit here and protest and go, what is going on? What are we actually doing to this sport? All right.
I'll go make a sign.
Strongly worded letter. When was the last time you wrote a strongly worded letter? You get the strongly worded
letter. I'll get the sign. I'll be out there in my overalls. We'll get it done.
Yeah. To the people to whom it may concern. No place to actually direct that because there's not a commissioner. But yeah, you get it. All right. Let's kick it to Dari Nowkhah. Love Dari. It had been a couple years since I had Dari on. Dari's got so much going on right now, so it's great to be able to talk about his new venture, doing all things Oklahoma. We really just talked mainly about all things Oklahoma. So if you're a Sooner fan, great conversation with the man that is the voice of reason for all things OU, for really all things SEC these days. So here is Dari Nowkhah. I'm now excited to be joined by a very special guest. It is Dari Nowkhah. Dari, should I introduce you as SEC Network point guard or host of the new best radio show in the great state of Oklahoma?
Both. It's fine. Yeah.
Either works.
Yeah. I think I'm good with both. Yeah. I mean,
okay. So tell the people about this, because tell the people like how this kind of came to be, because I think for a lot of people, you see people in media and they see someone like you that gets to do, a variety of things with SEC Network, and they might not think anything of you adding another thing to your already ridiculous workload, but getting to do a regular show at your alma mater like this while still holding on to your SEC Network duties is really unique, and I think kind of an awesome thing. I told you about it at SEC Media Days.
I appreciate it. It has been awesome. I did not for a second think this coming. So the radio station is called KREF, KREF. It's technically in Norman, but the vast majority of its listenership is via the app. So it's KREF app. And they do really well on that app. They call themselves the home of Sooner fans, but really it's a lot of SEC talk, Thunder talk, which I'm all in on. We're still celebrating and all that good stuff. But so one of my good friends, Toby Rowland, longtime voice of the Sooners, had a morning show on there, 6 to 9 local time. And he got hired as a sports director at the CBS affiliate in OKC. So it's like working too late, can't do an early radio show. And I'm like, I can't either. But he hit me up and he said, would you ever have any interest in doing local radio? And I was like, no, honestly, I've never, ever had that. And then it said in Oklahoma. And that part of it kind of intrigued me because I'm like, home state, identify really well with the people in that state, identify well with OU. A lot of good contacts at OU and in the outside throughout the SEC that I can bring in. Local radio, it's by nature really loose, and if we can make the time work, that would be great. And so Chris Plank, who does a lot of stuff on Sirius XM, Fox
Love
Sports,
Chris.
Yeah, you know Plank, right? So he does the next show, which was 9 to 12, and we had a couple of conversations, and Plank was like, I'll go 6 to 9. I'd love to have that shift. It's better for my schedule. And I said, well, I'll take 9 to 12, but we've got to get ESPN to clear it. And Connor, that was the longest process because it took them a month. And I honestly did not think they were going to clear it. And there were some others inside ESPN that were like, I wouldn't get your hopes up on this, but they came through and they're letting me do it. And I'm having an absolute blast doing it, man. I love it.
You've been at ESPN for 20 years. And that probably helps. And it probably helps too that I could have introduced you as voice of reason at SEC Network. PB's great. I love PB and there are a lot of great people, but PB himself would admit he's not the voice of reason at this point. But it probably helps that you're so level-headed that I don't think they have to worry about you saying all these inflammatory things on those airways. But at the same time, you're doing this at a time in which Oklahoma fans are a little bit on edge, and they're kind of like, man, they can kind of sense the changing of the tides. So like, what's that dynamic been like, knowing that you kind of got to walk a little bit of a line there?
So on the show, it's well known that I'm an OU person, right? It's even on the SEC Network. I can't go one show without Doring making a reference to it, or Ben Watson making a reference to it. In basketball, it's the same thing. I've never hidden where I go to school, but I'm certainly never going to outwardly root for one side over the other. That doesn't change on this station. So on the station, will I occasionally let a we slip out or an us if I'm talking about OU? Yeah, it happens because, I mean, I'm surrounded by all these OU people. I'm looking at these texts that are flying in on this text line that we have. I'm talking to a producer that's an OU guy. We're talking about OU so much, it just slips out sometimes. But I will not, and I apologize if you hear texts come in. I can't do anything about that. But I never know if that comes over the air. I think it does, but whatever. But I also, like, I'm really fair to the other teams in the SEC, right? I mean, I'll get hit for it from the listeners when I talk about how great Steve Sarkisian is. I've had Shane Beamer on. I've had Mark Stoops come on. Eli Drinkwitz, who they don't love, frankly, the fan base doesn't love, but he's come on. We've had a lot of fun with all this. So I'm bringing on really good guests, which they like, but I'm not hiding the OU thing. But at the same time, I'm certainly not disrespecting any other schools or programs while I'm on that show.
How many texts are you getting on that text line related to Greg Sankey reaching out to him to discuss the Oklahoma schedule?
It's early in the show. It did. I went on a rant last week. I'm so tired of talking about the schedule, Connor. The schedule is what it is. I'm a big believer in not worrying about things you can't control. We can complain and whine about it all we want, and how Texas got this and how OU got this, and it does no good. Like, if OU is good enough to be a playoff team, they'll manage the schedule the way they have to manage the schedule. And if they're not, then they won't. Like, I know this, if they get to the playoff, and some people think that they can, and some people think that they will, and make those kinds of strides, they will be prepared for anybody they see in that playoff. So I'm kind of over the schedule thing, but yeah, people still want to complain about it. I realize Texas got a better, more favorable schedule than OU did, but I'm also, look, we're sitting here and we're complaining about this schedule based upon what we think these teams will be. They may not be. Right? I mean, Austin Simmons may not be the second coming. South Carolina's defense might catch up to them. Joey Aguilar may not be Josh Heupel's answer. Missouri may not be able to adequately replace so many offensive starters that they lost this season. It may not end up shaking out to be what it looks like on paper. So I'm kind of over the complaining about it thing.
Are you over talking about John Mateer and Venmo?
I hope we're all over talking about John Mateer and Venmo. It was stupid. Like, my biggest thing is, when it came out, is I just assumed it was something that somebody created and sent out there and to try to get him in trouble. I was disappointed when I heard it was his actual Venmo, because that's really bad decision making to put sports gambling on the transaction, even if it's not. And I certainly hope his decision making as a quarterback on the field is better than that, because that was stupid. That was really, really stupid. But, I think it's died down. Hopefully we don't hear about some investigation from the NCAA. My guess is this, Connor, if there's any semblance of real on it, like receipt found that there was a gambling transaction, that fires up an investigation, and it should. Otherwise, he says, I was paying the dude back for a couple of cheeseburgers he bought me. There's no proof of anything else, and I don't know what you can do about it.
If there's a real takeaway from this, like a real legitimate, no matter what side of this argument you're on, if you're a Texas fan that's, spent time since then just photoshopping different things attached to this just for the sake of entertainment, like, if there's something to be gained, I do think John Mateer is very quickly learning This is the big time. Like, I saw his eyes get big when he showed up at his podium at SEC Media Days, and he's looking around going like, whoa. And I hate to do the it just means more thing, but it did. And this could be another one of those wake up calls to him of like, man, this ain't Little Elm, Texas or Pullman, Washington anymore. And if there's maybe that's the positive spin for an Oklahoma fan is like, all right, he's getting his welcome to the SEC moment before he even steps on an SEC field.
He's at Media Days. He came on the set with four of us, and he was nervous. I thought he adjusted quickly, but I know that he was nervous. We were doing an interview with him via satellite for a preseason show, and I heard him getting mic'd up in Norman saying, I'm a little nervous about it. He didn't know we could hear him. But then he relaxes and settles into it. This is a different world. So that is the message. The message is this: everything you do is going to be magnified. Everything. If you Venmo a dude back for cheeseburgers, you write cheeseburgers. You don't even consider something like gambling. Everywhere you go, you will be videoed. Like, your life has changed once you left Pullman, Washington, and came to Norman, Oklahoma. That's a fact, and I think he'll be fine with that. There's a level of maturity and leadership about him that people rave about, Connor, in Norman, and that was a stupid mistake a few years back. But yeah, hopefully he grows and learns from it.
What's a fair expectation for him? Because on one hand, he takes over what was arguably the worst offense in Oklahoma history, and on the other hand, you see the comps to Baker, and the spectrum is just all over the place. Is all SEC the expectation for you? Is it just holding down the starting job? Like, where are you kind of at with him going into the season?
Based on the fact that he's 3 years into an offense now, and that's the offense that he's in. And his familiarity with Ben Arbuckle, his ability to, and I've heard many people talk about his ability to teach the offense to everybody else on that offense, whether it's the 5 linemen in front of him, the tight ends who are yet to be unnamed or named, a new group of wide receivers, because this offense is new to every one of them. It's been like staggering. His willingness to get in his receiver's face if they run a wrong route, to get on the right guard if he doesn't pick up his assignment, whatever it might be. So based upon his familiarity with the offense and his leadership, I expect him to be an all SEC quarterback, second, third team, whatever that may be. I expect, and a lot of it will go as far as his offensive line goes. And that's obviously the biggest question mark on that entire team on either side of the football. But no, I do. I expect him to be one of the 2 or 3 best QBs in this league. And I expect an offense that's top half of the league, and a team because of it. And the defense we know it has, that'll be competing for an opportunity to go to the playoff late in the season.
I think a fascinating storyline that I'm not sure how many people outside of Norman are talking about, at least as it relates to Brent Venables, but how does the Joe Castiglione retirement, somebody who's been in that role since you graduated Oklahoma, like 98, we're talking, like how does his retirement this school year impact the future of Brent Venables?
Nobody knows, Connor. That's the thing. Nobody knows, because Randall Stevenson, who's leading the hiring committee, is the longtime CEO of AT&T, and he was given this job, right? Chairman of football and advisor to the president and the athletics director. So he's leading the charge along with the president. Depending on who you listen to, I don't believe this was all Joe C's decision. And I, as a longtime Joe C friend and fan, I don't want to hear that, but I believe that it wasn't entirely his decision. I don't know how out of the box Stevenson's going to go. So to say Brent has to go 9-3, 8-4, I don't know that it's fair to say a number, because you know what happens when a new AD comes in. It may not matter what Brent does. I mean, I tend to believe he'll be fine if he shows that this team is clearly headed in the right way. If his hires on the offensive side are proven to be good hires, I think he'll be okay. Everybody loves him. Everybody roots for him. He's a phenomenal human being. 6-6, I don't know that he's got a chance. 7-5, he may not. But, once you get into that 8-9 win thing, it's ultimately going to come down to whoever replaces Joe C, and it'll be kind of their call. So exactly the impact on Brent, I don't think anybody has any idea.
Last year, I think it's fair to say the Tennessee game meant more for Josh Heupel than it did for Tennessee itself. And, this year, the breakup game, and it's ironic that Oklahoma's first 2 years in the SEC, you get these huge headliner breakup type games in the first month of the season. SEC debut for Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I think the optics for Brent Venables can go in a lot of different directions based on how this Jackson Arnold breakup game plays out with Auburn and Oklahoma. What's the sense of the magnitude of that game and what it means for Oklahoma?
To me, and we have debates on the radio about this, to me, it's the biggest game of the first half of the season. It's bigger than Texas. It's bigger than Michigan. To me, it's the biggest game of the first half of the season. Cannot lose it. I think optics being terrible is probably even an understatement. You can't lose the game. You can't lose it because of where the two programs are, Auburn and Oklahoma. The two head coaches are, but the Jackson Arnold component to this makes it a game you cannot lose. He cannot walk onto that field and look comfortable and dice up a defense. It can't happen. Auburn cannot be a program that has seen to have been taking the step quicker than Oklahoma's taken the step, and not with Jackson as the quarterback. Michigan game, if you're going to tell me that OU is going to lose one game, either Michigan or Auburn, I'll take the Michigan L all day. It can't be Auburn. I think that is a massive, massive football game. And I don't know if the whole country realizes how big how big it is, but it's not lost on me. Like, it cannot lose it, Connor. I mean, I think it's that simple.
Yeah, we had Ari Wasserman on, and I asked him best breakup game of the year, and he's like, that's it right there. I mean, that's one you just can't miss. And you're right. It's different if Jackson Arnold would come back, 2 years later, 3 years later, he's coming back to Norman. But to be on the same field where a year earlier he's getting benched before halftime, it would be just the worst bit of optics for a defensive-minded head coach. If that's the guy that was supposed to be the first Oklahoma starting quarterback to start and finish his career in Norman since Landry Jones, all of a sudden he's doing these great things for Auburn. You're right. Those conversations would escalate in a hurry if Brent Venables lost that one.
In a massive, massive way. Yeah. I think even if they beat Michigan but lose that game and they're sitting at 3-1, I think it's a really bad situation and a bad look. And oh, by the way, you're 0-1 in league play. Right. So, which is not what you want either. So, I can't see a way right now that they don't win that game. Obviously, you start looking at things like that defense practiced against Jackson every day last year, and there's a lot of pieces back. Brent knows what Jackson can and cannot handle, right? So I can only imagine life will be very difficult for Jackson that day with the talent and the experience on defense and with Brent calling it. So I have a hard time seeing them lose that game. Plus, you throw in the fact that Hugh Freeze was has widely told people and started at media days, Connor, that, I'm basically asking my defensive coaches to take it easy on Jackson. We don't end practice without our quarterback feeling comfortable. And that, to me, is a sign that Jackson up here is not where a starting quarterback in the SEC should be. So I like Jackson a lot. Personally, I like him. I have a hard time seeing him really, really thrive in this league. If he does, let's, as OU folks, hope it's not the fourth game of the season. But I think that's a tough situation for him to walk back into.
You had the rare distinction of being someone who did not experience a winning season while you were in school at Oklahoma, which is just bizarre. I mean, it's just wild. It's like, I always tell people, I went to Indiana and I experienced the worst 3-year stretch in program history because I was there from 08 to 12, and they figured things out by 12. But you never even got that season to exhale. Mm-mm. Is there a favorite or maybe a least favorite memory you have of that time? Because I think for people like me, I'm 35, I don't really remember that time of Oklahoma football, and it seems like a different program that experienced a time like that.
Well, fortunately, being 49 and going to games in the 80s with my grandparents or my dad, I had seen them win big in the Barry days. Yeah, the college years were tough. I mean, you're right. I did not see one. 5-1, 6-6, 3-8, 4-8. Those were the 4 seasons. I do remember this one was bad, but it was also kind of good. So my dad went to University of Tulsa and proud Golden Hurricane alum. And in 96, Tulsa came to Norman. And so I'll give you a good in about it. So Tulsa came to Norman. And my dad came decked out in his blue and gold, and he was sitting with me in the student section and rooting like crazy for Tulsa. And Wes Caswell caught a 99-yard touchdown pass down the sideline for Tulsa, and Tulsa beat OU that day in Norman. And my dad was beside himself. And so that was bittersweet because I grew up also going to Tulsa games with my dad. I loved Tulsa growing up. And so there was that. That same season, though, Connor, a game that I've rehashed on my show. I've had Justin Fuente, who was the quarterback that day, on my show with it, was 96 OU Texas. Oklahoma's 0-4 and a 22-point underdog to the number 25 ranked Longhorns. OU's down 11 with 6.5 minutes to go. Return a punt, Jarrell Jackson for a touchdown. Fuente to a tight end, Steven Alexander for 2. They're down 3. And then Jeremy Alexander hits a 45-yard field goal in the last minute and a half to tie the game, go to overtime. And James Allen, who 2 years before that at running back had gotten stuffed by big Stoney Clark on the half-yard line. This time, James Allen plunges into the end zone for a 30-27 overtime win to go 1-4. 1-4. We'd lost at home to Tulsa, TCU, and Kansas. We're 1-4, and our half of the Cotton Bowl is celebrating like we had just won the Natty. And Justin Fuentes pumping his arm. It was the first win for John Blake over those guys, especially. So TU, bad. UT, great. Same year.
It's the beauty of college football, man, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Like that's one thing. Like an NFL fan, you can't explain those stories to them. Like I come up with those examples all the time of like lost season, but then you remember those moments, and here you are talking about something like that 3 decades later, and for a program that's had a ton of success since then, and it doesn't matter. Like as much as I get into these conversations about what does college football mean anymore, and like to regular season and stuff like that, and these wins and these moments, like. That still has to stand out. And if OU has those this year, like OU had it last year by beating Alabama, and like those moments are still going to be held so near and dear for college football fans. But man, like that's just wild to think.
But
about.
it was amazing. But then that same year, Oklahoma State comes into Norman and beats them 12-0, and they hadn't won since '76, and this was '96. And then a bunch of OSU people start painting 12-0 all over our buildings and our sidewalks in the middle of the night. So we go to class on Monday, and all we are reminded of is 12-zip. They made bumper stickers. You could drive around, you see orange and black bumper stickers. It just simply said 12-0. I don't know, man. It was that dealing with OU football when I was a student there was like another class every year. You had to deal with the ups and the downs and the emotional baggage that they put you through.
That's why you're the voice of reason, not just for SEC Network, but Oklahoma football, because you've seen it all, man. Like you understand every side of it.
Man.
Let's get you out of here with a prediction, because you gotta host your show in a bit here. But just kind of transport yourself to week 1, Saturday night, SEC football final. It's cranking up. You're doing the intro. You've got CD. You're flanked by, well, I guess you're not flanked. You got CD and Ben Watson both to your left, and Georgia Ole Miss game has just wrapped up. Georgia State Ole Miss, rather, has just wrapped up on SEC Network.
Is that our first primetime game?
7:45 SEC Network.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah.
Because LSU Clemson is going to be wrapping up as well, but that starts at 7:30. So I'm assuming, maybe hurry up offense goes a little bit faster. Who knows? But
maybe
Saturday slate's over. What's the biggest SEC storyline that you guys are going to be talking about from the jump? And it can't just be simply, well, Texas played at Ohio State or LSU played against Clemson. Like what's going to be the first thing you guys dig into?
It's how the league did in the 2 games that you just mentioned. It's LSU Clemson and it's Texas Ohio State. How did the league do, right? Those are significant because each team is playing a national championship contender. They both fancy themselves to be national championship contenders. So it's, does LSU break the 5-year opening game losing streak? What does Arch look like up there? It's in some order. It's those 2 games, probably depending on how they finish. LSU's late, so they might be earlier in the show. Texas, but if they win in Columbus, it's our lead. I mean, I think that's what we're talking about. And then the next day was South Carolina, Virginia Tech. I'm sure we'll talk about that too later in that Saturday night SEC football final. But No, it's in some order. It's going to be LSU and Texas. I would think will be the big stories to come out of that day.
Last one for you.
You're good.
Maybe this is a dumb question. Texas fans, Oklahoma fans, they don't root for each other. But week 1, will Oklahoma fans be rooting for Texas to beat Ohio State? Because that would be the ultimate sign that Oklahoma is officially a member of the SEC, that they're rooting for like a rival on a big stage, not in a conference game, but on a big stage out of conference.
So what I've picked up by dealing with OU fans for 15 hours a week on a radio show, more closer than I have in 20 years, okay, is one, they will never root for Texas. But I have gone on the record and said, if that game was being played here, I would invite them to my front yard and I'd paint the field burnt orange because I want Texas to win that game so damn bad. 20% of OU fans will root for Texas that night. Maybe. They are not in this camp. I can't, and I'm trying every day to get them in this camp. They won't root for other SEC teams just because the rest of the league does. And I don't think you're ever going to hear SEC at an event in Norman, Oklahoma. So I'm trying to bring them around a little bit. They tell me they couldn't care less what the other SEC schools have always done. They're stubborn, but no, even Ohio State, I still think the majority will root for Ohio State, but I won't. I certainly won't be.
They got to get a more favorable schedule. Then they'll start chanting SEC.
Maybe, but yeah, I've even told them, I'm like, look, in this league, this is just the way it's always been. You can take it or leave it. Typically, the league roots for the league, but there's one team you refuse to root for, right? So Alabama, I'm sure, was not rooting for Auburn to beat Florida State in Pasadena, California in a national championship game. I get it. But like, give a little fist bump if South Carolina beats Virginia Tech. Give a little fist bump if LSU beats Clemson. They couldn't care less who wins those games, to be honest with you.
Look, I witnessed Chris Marlar rooting for Auburn to kick off the season against Oregon. Okay? Like, anything is possible. If he can do it as the most diehard Bama fan I ever have and ever will meet, then it can be done. Like, minds could be changed. People change, with conference affiliation. Yeah. I'm just saying, Oklahoma fans never say never.
Maybe they just need to stop being angry about last season, and then things start settling into place a little bit, and then they'll start coming around, right? How are we? Their thought is, how do we root for teams to win when we're not doing it ourselves? We're jealous. True. Maybe that'll change. Yeah,
that's fair. Dari, you're the best. Hope you have an awesome fall. You're gonna have plenty to talk about this year, man.
Bro, come back up and see us, man. You're always welcome in studio up there.
I would love to. I always talk about it all the time to people who are like, what do you get to do during the fall? I'm like, actually, like, one of the coolest experiences I've had was SEC Network for the day. And I got to 2019 and Marlon and I got to see the behind the scenes of everything and just watch a day of football with you guys. And it was the best. Would love to be able to do that again sometime soon.
Let me know when.
Love it, man.
All right, man.
All right, well, let's close with some lad of the week. Who you got?
Super easy one for this week. My boy Jaxson Dart. I remember during the NFL. My boy. Oh, well, the reason I was going to say that was during kind of the NFL pre-draft process, the combine and all that. I was like, this is a guy that's kind of getting, under-considered, overlooked, whatever it would be for some of the bigger names. And what's so funny about Dart is that he is in that mold of his vibes are so strong, they carry him forward. A lot of the stuff in the conversation with him was this Lane Kiffin offense, is it too gimmicky? Does he do enough pro style stuff? Does he have enough of a head on his shoulders? Is he enough of a professional businessman? He did that Gruden camp where he said purple and he clapped his hands and everybody laughed at that and said, "You never." His
cadence wasn't hard enough.
Yeah, like right. And I kind of said this during the draft is like, you can look at the measurables, like in terms of his body, his arm strength, all that stuff, and that kind of makes him into a slab of marble that you could craft. But there's something about him. I'm not comparing these two as players. I just want to say it. But that is how someone like Burrow jumped from the 7th round to number 1 overall. His measurables didn't change. It was that dog in him carried him forward. And it appears that Jaxson Dart has a little puppy. He has like a version of that where it's like, hey, you can be in this kind of zany offense. You can be part of this little bit of a zany team. You can love the like his Twitter post or his Instagram post are very like wide receiver coded or like, skill position or whatever defensive line coded, not the stuff the quarterbacks post because he's a little bit flashy. He likes to have fun and he likes to be himself. And so through 2 preseason games, though, He is a combined 26 of 35 for 291 yards with 2 touchdowns passing and 1 rushing. That's the thing that's so interesting to me about Jaxson Dart is that when the offense doesn't work, right? And he's had bad games. I get that in college. He will in the pros, whatever it would be, right? But whenever things don't work, he finds a way. And I think that's so interesting from his standpoint is that's a little bit what I liked about him coming out of college is that it wasn't about really the system. It was about how he ran the system. It was about what he saw when he saw the field. And you could kind of put him in most systems, I would say, and you would find a way to, we talked about this with Hendon Hooker a little bit, move those chains, use your legs, take the dump off pass, live to fight another day. And so I think that there was a lot of noise made with him in college and the expectations of last year, but I think that doesn't take away from who he is as a person and who he is as a player. And I've been really impressed with him from the pre-draft process. And now it looks like the Giants got at least a serviceable backup.
Here's a comp. Jaxson Dart is to the 2025 New York Giants as one true freshman DJ Lagway was to the 2024 Florida Gators.
There you go.
Kind of similar in that regard. And he's not going to be the starter to start the year because when you have Russell Wilson and, of course, Jameis, who's still Jameis, as we saw with that video with him hitting the goalpost in practice, which was just awesome. There is still going to be an expectation he plays year one because if you're a round one quarterback, you play. Like you just play. And it's very likely going to define Brian Dable, Joe Shane, and what their future is. And if those guys look the part, then you probably, if you're the Giants, consider running it back, at least knowing that Dable is the guy that you would want to mentor him. That's like kind of the built-in thing with this. And that's why it's different than if you have a defensive-minded head coach. Like, well, I don't really want to start over. I don't really want to have to go in there and try and find the right offensive mind. Take it from my personal experience as a fan. Not an ideal plan. But then you get Ben Johnson in year two, and then everything is just fine. But that's what I want to see with Jaxson Dart, with how this year plays out. Is like, when does he get in? And is he kind of billed as the savior? Does he show enough for those guys to keep their jobs? For his sake, I really do hope that he shows enough to make those two, or at least Brian Dable, like worthy of sticking around, because I kind of hated that situation for him in some ways with what's being said with, their front office and will they need to clean house? Like that just, I think that sucks so much for quarterback. We talk about quarterback situations all the time, but I find myself rooting for the Giants. Maybe it's part because, Jalen Hyatt's obviously been really good to us. Everybody should go listen to the episode we had last week, having him on again. But I do find myself, and Wandale being there. I've always loved Wandale. And I just find myself kind of rooting for the Giants and hope Jaxson Dart's got many good moments in the regular season ahead and not just in the preseason.
I think the Giants are about as likable as a New York City team can be. Even with the Mets, they have like this super rich owner and like whatever. Like I kind of enjoy laughing at the Mets, whereas like the Giants have kind of been like this like weird underdog story for most of our lives. And so yeah, I'm kind of there with you. Like I find myself, when they play the Cowboys, I root for them. When they play the Patriots or whatever. And like I'll say this, and then I'll get out of here. That QB room, what do they talk about? The answer I can come up with is baseball. I feel like they're all probably a little bit into baseball.
Russell Wilson.
Jameis Winston
talking about baseball, yeah. Jaxson Dart just thinking very differently, Jameis thinking very differently, and then they got Tommy DeVito too, as well in that room. Unless they cut him or something, I just didn't realize that. It's usually don't have 4 quarterbacks going into a season. At least I don't think they would. But
he's trying to get everybody on FanDuel. He's like, "Look, I got a career after this, guys. Come on, hop on in. We'll pull it. Let's go."
Seriously, but yeah, hope Jaxson Dart's got a whole lot of good moments with the Giants, not just this year, but beyond that. Okay, I'm going with Jim Harbaugh as my lad of the week because
big week for him.
It was. Will get a little show cause, additional show cause, not just for Burgergate or whatever that was beforehand with the 4-year show cause.
You can never work at the Wendy's down the street from your house, and I hope I hope you know how bad you were.
Why can't I work at the Wendy's down the street from my house?
That's as close as Harbaugh is to coming back to college football.
Yeah, that's true. They committed the perfect crime.
They really did.
And when those sanctions came out, I shouldn't even say sanctions. When Michigan's punishment from the NCAA for the Connor Stallions sign stealing scandal, when all that came about, I think everyone realized, as much as there is this frustration with the punishment, Michigan got away with the perfect crime. Like they really did. And not one of these people that's going to say, well, the entire 23 season is just gone, because they still, like, people forget, all this stuff with Connor Stalions comes out in October, and then they had so much pressure on them to win. And if they had been accused of any future sign stealing, that is a tough look. And I give them respect for being able, and those players for being able to withstand all of that. Did the sign stealing and the lengths that they went to definitely play a part in them reviving their program after it was left for dead in 2020? Basically, yeah. Like, you can't convince me otherwise, even though they don't have the evidence. Because why? Connor Stalions got rid of it.
Put it in a lake in 1,000 pieces. Yeah, I mean, shout out once again to the Untold documentary series. I gotta give them credit for just blatantly being propaganda at this point. Like, it's like, what if documentaries just didn't exactly tell the truth? They did a sign stealing documentary before the final penalty. We're like, well, it was all legal.
And they used it too in the investigation. By the way, I left that part out when I talked about in the top about my weekend calm before the storm, my solo weekend. I watched that on Friday night. I grilled myself a steak and I watched that on Friday night. I thought that was going to be very relevant to kind of know and just like, because I had only seen clips, I realized, and I just kind of, it was one of those things that when it came out, I was like, I'm kind of fatigued on all this. I'll be honest with you. I'm going to see all the noteworthy takeaways that are coming out from this. Like,
so his take within that documentary, remind me, because I watched it a couple weeks ago. He said that it was ridiculous and abhorrent that he was on the sideline of the Central Michigan game, right?
He said that guy doesn't even look like me.
Right.
And Dave Portnoy said, yeah, he told me it was him. They found in the NCAA investigation, it was indeed him. That was maybe the biggest revelation that came out of all of this. But just think about it from this standpoint, Will. If you're a fan of a team and you know that the biggest punishment levied against your team after it wins a national championship with not like, I hate to go down this road, but an off the field, the Jerry Sandusky scandal was an off the field NCAA violation that did not impact the quality of players that Penn State had. Right? We can. I'm not trying to I'm saying from a competitive standpoint,
an advantage from that.
Correct.
Yeah.
This is gaining a competitive advantage, like what Michigan did.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were told that the worst thing that's going to happen to your university is that in an era in which all the rich people are paying for athletes legally, the rich people are just going to have to pay more money. Like, that's the biggest punishment. Oh, your head coach is going to get suspended for a few games. But by the way, it's not even your head coach that won a national championship, because he's off to the NFL, and you don't even really care that he's off to the NFL because he won you that title. He's still, Jim Harbaugh, considered a god by Michigan fans who are like, hey, it's a witch hunt that he got this show cause penalty, even though he very clearly knew about all this. Otherwise, why is Connor Stalions getting the game ball for beating Iowa?
Right.
That, why is all this stuff happening?
He gave really firm handshakes that week. He was on it.
And Michigan, people are like, people were blown away that Michigan's appealing this fine, which, the $20 million, that's the number that gets thrown out there. And then lawyer fees get added into this. And you're probably looking at $30 million of other people's money, the people that stole Bryce Underwood.
Yep.
I'm not saying that this money is just going to be able to come across in a day, but that's not what I'm going to concern myself with, is how the winningest program in the history of college football, based on total number of wins, which include when they were playing hardware stores. I'm not going to be concerned about how they're going to find ways to pay for it. If I'm being told I'm not going to a bowl game, I'm not going to a postseason or something like that, or I get national championship taken off the table and it's not even on the NCAA website anymore. Okay, that's different. But the NCAA is trying to be like, hey, we've modernized. We're not doing that anymore. We're not going to punish people that weren't a part of it. Will, I threw this idea out there. It's just an idea. What if the NCAA had just said, in its very last attempt to show it is relevant, it understands the times, what if they said, we're not going to fine you, we're not going to take scholarships away, we're not going to take wins away, we're not going to do what we did to Mizzou when Mizzou just had tutors take some tests, and they're like, we're going to take away a bunch of wins because even though you self-reported this, that's the only thing we feel like we can do. What if the NCAA just said, that Ohio State game that you're going to host next year, you're not going to get to play it. You've got to forfeit it.
Yep.
That's it. That's the only punishment.
Yep.
That's the only scenario in which everybody's probably saluting the NCAA.
And Ohio State would be like, we'd love to not play Michigan ever again, actually. That would be great.
No, they wouldn't love that. But they would love knowing that forever in the history of that rivalry, you would be able to look back on that day. And that would be the sign that Michigan cheated. And that would be the punishment that would actually sting Michigan. Money's not going to sting them. They're not going to care about that. But I would have loved to have seen something like that of like, yeah, you're just not going to play the Ohio State game. That's it. You can go to the postseason. If you still get into the playoff with not playing that, all right, fine. We'll let the selection committee kind of decide how that's going to impact your resume, but you're just not going to play Ohio State. Oh, that would have been chef's kiss.
Yeah, man, I've already done enough negative Big Ten stuff today, but one thing that I will say is the scandals are just so not clearly proportionate. You know, when you talk about Penn
They're
State
the best
stuff,
scandal conference, Will. They are.
it's not even remote. Like stuff that is horrible. Look at some of the Ohio State scandals. Look at the Michigan State scandal. Look at the Penn State scandal. Go up and down those ranks. And I'm not going to go through them because it would be like a witch hunt, I guess. But point being, like, it's just very funny because, again, we're trying to preserve the sanctity of all this stuff. And I will make one point off of this. If we're trying to make the college football into the NFL, let's subject Dave Portnoy to those same stipulations they gave Tom Brady then.
Yeah, I'd love to hear his unbiased opinion on that. Yeah, it is weird, though.
Think about that. How is Dave Portnoy different from Tom Brady if he's a massive Michigan donor? Really? How is Tom Brady owning the Raiders different from Bryce Underwood being brought in by Dave Portnoy? And he could just be on air and speak freely about it.
Says an LSU fan.
I'm just saying. Like
I'm just saying.
But you see what I'm saying? Let's make it the NFL then. Let's regulate everything. That's fine.
Indiana, Illinois, Maryland, Iowa. I'm thinking of all the programs that have had player mistreatment scandals in the playoff era.
Yep.
Like from just the Big Ten alone.
Yep.
Isn't that wild? It is kind of bizarre of how many different Big Ten programs have just been engulfed in a national scandal. Ohio State, Urban Meyer, with how that played out 2018. I'm not even going to say his name.
That's not the Ohio State scandal I was talking about, by the way. There is a worse one, but look that one up. Anyway.
Which Tattoo Gate?
Wrestling team.
Oh, we're going that direction. Oh, I was sticking to football.
Sure. But I'm saying in terms of athletics, right? And anyway, but yeah, I think that the scandals, the PR is electric there. The PR that's the way I can spin that.
Michigan committed the perfect crime.
They sure did.
Tip of the cap, Jim Harbaugh got the getaway car just straight to the NFL, right off into the sunset. Look, you can hate it, but there are so many people that you can just continue to clown Michigan, which Michigan fans don't care about.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're not a Michigan man because you lied, cheated, stealed, whatever. Doesn't matter to them. They got their title. The NCAA acknowledges their title, and they got their pocketbooks hit.
Oh no!
How are they going to cover this? Wild.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. As I said earlier, we are doing a pod Thursday. Maybe we'll talk some week 0 stuff. Maybe we'll talk some other stuff. You know what we won't do? We're not going to talk about the expanded playoff because I'm kind of sick of talking about it. And I was glad that we did it enough today.
That's a promise. If they come out with 32 teams, ignore it. Don't even react.
Ignore it.
That's what they want you to do.
We will silent protest. We will do it. I don't care.
Woke.
We will be talking about college football on Thursday. That is a promise to the people. And then next Wednesday, we will have our full week 1 SEC preview. Cannot wait for it. We did it, guys. We did it. We're here. The offseason, it is over. We are in a football week. That is great. That is all I need to know. Please, please, please leave us a 5-star review. Subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can watch every single episode of the Saturday Down South podcast. Follow us on Twitter at the SDS Pod, at Sat Down South, at CJ O'Gara, at Go So Hard. Thanks, guys. Talk soon.